Good evening and welcome to Ek Samvaad at Arunim Ankuran. Today we have a very special guest and a very special topic. We'll be talking to Suverchala Kashyap today, and the topic is something that is very close to my heart. And uh, we were just talking about it yesterday, and we discovered how much both of us identify with the theme that is. How does the world look through the eyes of a child? And I think all of us have been children at some time, so we know how the world of children is. But at the same time, as we grow older, there are so many things that change. So I'm so delighted. Welcome to the session, Suvarchala, a
Thank you so much.
conversation with a change maker who helps children write script rather their own stories. Let me just say a few things about Aruni Mankuran. It is an initiative for positive social change through self development. The idea is that each person is unique and special in some way, and that we can all make a difference. Each drop counts, and all of us can be change makers. So I'm so delighted to have Suvarchala here. She's doing a great job with children, with parents, with teachers, and through the conversation, we'll just get an insight into what her work is all about. Suvarchala is an accomplished educationist, communicator, journalist, extremely versatile background. She has a dual master's degree in botany and education, topped with a diploma in journalism and communication. She was the founder principal of a very reputed school in Vadodara. She has also been a journalist for nearly 10 years. She's a resource person for teacher training workshops as well as student workshops, and she has conducted workshops across India, Nepal, and Sri Lanka. She has been a mentor at the Katha Writers Workshops for students at the regional and national level for the last 7 years. She has just published her book called Sunk in Amber, Dewdrops Amidst Rain. It's a beautiful collection of her poems. She's an extremely creative person. She's an anchor at the VNM TV Vadodara and anchors a show called Shiksha Ka Badalta Swaroop. So it's a pleasure and a privilege to have you here, Suvarchala. For those who are listening to this conversation, Ek Samvaad at Aruni Mankuran, today we'll talk about if we all could see the world through the eyes of a child, we would see magic in everything. So I'm privileged to have a magician here, and we are going to talk to her about her perspective. So, what would you like to say to start off with, Suvarchala?
Well, yes. So, thank you for having me in this conversation, Dr. Pragya Mathur. Kumar. Names sometimes are so important. But yes, what you said is so true. In this whole, what I'd like to start out with is that in this whole urge or in our sometimes misplaced zeal, we forget to kind of take into account the people, these little creatures, and we kind of negate that entire identity of theirs, and we jump to making them who we are, right?
Right.
So, like you said in this first slide, that if we were just to pause for a minute and view the world through their eyes, you would actually see magic everywhere.
Yeah.
So, before launching into the formal thing, I'd just like to share with the viewers a very tiny incident that happened a couple of days back. So there is this little girl. She's about 6.5 years old, very enthusiastic, very creative. And so her mom set up the computer for her. She was in my online class.
Yes.
And suddenly she picks up the scale and she puts it across her eyes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
she says, "Oh my God, ma'am, I can see rainbows." And I was like, so the mom heard that, and she kind of said, you need to listen to ma'am, in a slightly stern voice. Okay.
Yeah.
And she continued to have the scale over her eyes and kept
Mhm.
looking at it. So I told her, yes, let's explore why we can see a rainbow through your scale. And the 6-year-old was kind of totally mesmerized that
Mhm.
here's someone who's ready to listen to me. She's not
Yes.
telling me all the time what I am supposed to do. So you see, magic is something which is there in the moment, and children live in the moment. You see, children are not. I would say all of us live in the moment, but as adults, we tend to become a little more, kind of cliched, and therefore we kind of pressurize children to think in certain ways.
Yeah.
So yes, there certainly is magic all around.
And we also have so many filters.
So many
So,
filters, really,
so
so many
yeah,
filters. Yes.
right, right. So, Suvarchala, why don't you start with how was your journey so far, and where did you start off from? Like, just trace back your journey.
Yes. Okay. So this again, I think would be something which would help a lot of children. You see, now today when we look at 2020 and kind of take a look at what has happened with education, say 10 years ago, there are many avenues available to children, right? Many avenues available. You have even the introduction of liberal arts now, which to a large extent was kind of looked down upon, at least when we were getting into university and college and all of that. So, my core love, I would say, or my first love has always been writing, the world of words. And thankfully, coming from a family like my dad, mom, my extended family, aunts, all encourage that, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
as children, by the age of 10, I think
Mm-hmm.
we read up like almost anything under the sun, which was age appropriate.
Mm-hmm.
And after 10, we were reading way much than was required in that sense. But that stood us in great stead. But then again, I want to make this point very clear that sometimes we are not very clear as youngsters
Mm-hmm.
to take a certain decision entirely on our own. So what we do is we look up to our parents, we look up to our role models around, our teachers. So when I entered the university, of course, I got in through merit and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I don't know how now when I look back, but
Yeah.
I chose science.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I chose science
Mm-hmm.
simply because in my head, my role model was my elder brother, who is an IIT graduate and later went on to study from IIM Calcutta. So, somewhere in the mind, you have that urge to measure up to somebody and,
Mm-hmm.
feel. So,
Yes.
I did well. It's not that I didn't do well in botany, I did
Mm-hmm.
well, but
Mm-hmm.
my heart lay in psychology. आप
Mm-hmm.
मानोगे नहीं. And in
That's good.
writing, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So many of my friends were from the Department of Psychology, Punjab University, and I would take their notes. I would study extra with them,
Mm-hmm.
and follow this dream of living in a so-called make-believe world. And then, of course, I wanted to study. I still am studying, and want to study further. And
Mm-hmm.
so I went on to do my master's in education, and
Wow.
then also journalism. And yeah, and then I worked as a journalist for a long time, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
But then again, it has to come back to clarity.
Mm-hmm.
And as our topic today is that of a change maker, I
Mm-hmm.
truly believed at one point of time that as a journalist, I would be able to change a lot of things,
Mm-hmm.
which to some extent did happen.
Mm-hmm.
But then I also like challenges, and I felt that I could bring about a larger change if I came closer to children in any which way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I taught at the university over here in Vadodara at journalism and communication also,
Mm-hmm.
contributing on that level. And then the school thing happened, so I
Yeah.
was there for 12 years.
Good for the
And
children it happened.
yes, I would say that, because also the thing is that at that point of time, the management was looking for someone
Mm-hmm.
who was not quote unquote uh, in a certain slot, you know. So I guess apart from whatever they were looking for, they found that aspect of sometimes you need to be unconventional. I talk about that in my talk. When I
Mm-hmm.
say unconventional, doesn't mean I have to have a tattoo everywhere on me,
Huh.
right? But at the same time, if a child comes up to me and says that, I just got I got a tattoo on my neck. So
Mm-hmm.
I must also have the ability not to frown, you know.
Correct.
So unconventional manifestations happen in so many ways, you see. Non-conformity happens in so many ways. So therefore, we have to look at where is it headed.
Mm-hmm.
Is it serving a larger good? Is it helping a large number of people? So when I say this to youngsters, they're quite zapped. They're
Mm-hmm.
like, you think we should think so much when we get a tattoo done? I said, why not? It's your skin, it's
Yes.
your body,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So unconventional in that sense. I feel that a lot of thinkers of our times and prior to that too have been the ones who've kind of gone into a little bit of the lateral side, a little on a tangent.
Hmm.
And children today must be encouraged. I think teachers, children must be encouraged to be truly versatile, you see.
Yeah.
Not necessarily in order to achieve any personal or every achievement doesn't have to be something that brings about a change. Some can be just for fun, you know.
Yeah.
But it's essential as parents and educators for us to
Mm-hmm.
understand that
Mm-hmm.
and kind of pan it out into the world.
Yeah. So I think that reminds me of drawing classes where the teachers give pictures and then tell children to color them, and the ones who end up coloring all the pictures very neatly with all the colors inside get 10 out of 10, and the ones who go beyond the borders of the drawing, they get B grades. I think that's where we are trying to connect and make a point, right? So okay.
Absolutely.
So Virgila, you've been doing so
Yes.
much of excellent work, and in fact, I've been seeing some of the books that your students are bringing out. We'll talk about that later, but let me ask you this. So, can you just run us through some of the things that some of the interventions that you've done, and how have the milestones turned out?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So just yes. So I would like to just start with this quote by Steve Jobs that, you know, many a time you are told as a child, not everybody is lucky enough, I would say, to be accepted as a non-conformist, so to speak. And a non-conformist doesn't have to be a rebel, right?
Correct.
So our upbringing was such that there were always pros and cons in our environment. And therefore, we were able to kind of perhaps analyze, not always reaching the correct conclusion, but well, we were put through the process. So adults in our in and around us kind of tended to believe in us, and so we felt that we could bring about a change. But often
Yes.
we come up against this very cynical approach कि तुम क्या कर लोगे, एक इंसान क्या कर लेगा, right? What would you do?
Yes. Yes.
Well, it's that one person, Steve Jobs, it's that one person, Bill Gates, and we have so many to name, but this
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
a quote I like, that people who are crazy enough to think that they can change the world are the ones who
Wow.
would,
Yes.
you know, who would do
Beautiful.
it and actually do it, right?
Yes. Yes.
Because again, here when we say crazy, it's not crazy as in the typical meaning of the word, but you're so driven,
Yeah.
you are so enthused, you are so you believe so strongly, and even if it means turning around one person,
Yeah.
it kind of gives you that joy and you create a ripple effect.
So true.
So,
So true.
yes, and coming to what I believe in, Pragya, as you said, is that, the biggest mistake we tend to make is that we count experience
Mhm.
uh, as a mechanism to impose.
Yes.
Now take a look at what Rabindranath Tagore has said. Don't limit a child to your own learning, for he was born in another time. He is
Yes.
born in another time.
Yeah.
So yes, we certainly are more experienced than them in many ways, but that does not mean that we should undermine, or we should underestimate, or we should kind of always be in a mode of telling, right? So a
So
certain
true.
balance has to be created to get them on board, for anything that we are doing, right?
Mhm.
So experience is one thing which we sometimes tend, and that is where children or young adults, or even teachers for that matter, because a part of my work involves, as you mentioned, interacting with teachers.
Hmm.
So they tend to run away, you know. Now, until and unless, so one is experience, don't
Mhm.
use your experience as a tool which kind of creates that imposition on children, or people. Second is, you have to be very clear that when you say something, walk the talk. No duality, no dichotomy, because children are the ones who can see through you.
Oh, yes.
Absolutely, absolutely, and clearly they see through you, right? So, therefore, it is very essential to walk the talk. And this is an example that I like to give often when I'm talking to teachers and youngsters, is
Mhm.
that adults tend to divide the world into do's and don'ts. That you should not do this or you should do this. Unfortunately, we're all kind of falling into that trap from time to time. But
Mhm.
we never engage with children. So, after experience comes engage with them in a meaningful manner, engage with them for a longer period of time, even if it is a 2-year-old. Like I told you about this, I can see rainbows through my scale. Now, if I had reprimanded the child, if I told her, what are you doing? You're wasting time, you know, that entire curiosity would have been killed forever.
So,
Apart from
yes.
traumatizing the child, you see,
Hmm. Hmm.
we would end up doing a lot of damage to them. So when you bring them on board and when you walk the talk, you are strengthening not only your belief, but you're strengthening their belief in themselves,
Yeah.
right? So
So true.
when you yes, so in this field of it, you need to be very very patient, you need to persevere, because for instance, if you ask me to do something, I could say, no, I don't think I can do it, Pragya. But if you are the mentor who gets it out of me, you would say, how about giving it a chance? How about coming over to me and, in your free time, talking to me for 10 minutes?
Hmm.
The very tone would encourage even a teacher, even an adult, even a parent to say, okay, fine. When Pragya ma'am is free, I will go and at least talk for 10 minutes. So you have managed to hook the person.
Hmm.
You have managed to, catch them. Like they say, when the iron is hot, hit it when the iron is hot, right? So
Yes. Yes.
these stepping stones are the ones that have really helped me.
Mhm.
And to kind of uh, go full hog into it. I
Mhm.
won't say it is easy. It
Mhm.
certainly isn't easy. There are several challenges that come
Mhm.
along the way,
Mhm.
emotionally, even say mentally, sometimes, not from any problem point of view, but it happens because we
Mhm.
are all human. So
Yeah.
that's when we have to keep chiseling, that, okay, fine, I have the complete sculpture in my mind very clearly. So how do I and when do I chisel? When do I
Yes.
hone? When
Hmm.
do I enhance? You know,
Mhm.
and along with it comes the freedom. So
Mhm.
I feel that experience, self belief, engaging children, kind of truly taking them on board,
Mhm.
as well as teachers making a very participative approach to things,
Mhm. Mhm.
kind of has helped me to achieve certain levels, I would say. not in terms of numbers, but certainly in terms of turning hearts around,
Yeah. Yeah.
And I feel that's very essential. Today, what we are lacking in many ways in our education is that heart,
Yeah. I
that
know.
empathetic approach.
Yes.
And just saying it is not going to change anything, right? So, another thing that I would just mention before you ask me another question is this one. You see, we need to understand that children do not move, think, or speak in a straight line. So they're like all over the place all the
Yeah.
time, right?
Amazing. Yes.
So are we. And
Hmm.
neither does imagination nor creativity. So,
Hmm.
going back to the point which you so beautifully made, that we tend to think that coloring within the lines, coloring very neatly, is actually art, but that isn't so. Yes, you could use that as an exercise for concentration. You could use that as an exercise for telling them to be very, very particular or meticulous about something, right? But if a child wants to draw, a bird that looks like a frog, I mean, why not?
Yes.
You see,
Yeah.
what I mean to say is that we have to give them that room, which we
Hmm.
don't. And therefore, by the time they are 15 or 16, we kind of counter them with things like, can't you think on your own?
Hmm.
Can't you make up your mind whether you should be going out with this
Yes.
friend, right? So the child has not been tuned.
Hmm.
The child has not been fine tuned, I would say,
Hmm.
to
Hmm.
even make a decision for themselves, right? Or even if the child has shared a decision,
Hmm.
you kind of, just blow it away and say, no, 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 forget it. You're not capable of thinking. Now, yes, we say these words uh, unmindfully perhaps, but they create that barrier, they create this wall, and the child goes back thinking that I'm not worthy enough. What's the
Hmm.
point? Why should I even think? Why should I,
Hmm.
innovate? So I feel that parents, teachers, and everybody must understand that children do not move, think, or speak in a straight line.
Hmm.
Neither does imagination or creativity,
Hmm.
and sadly our education system every now and then forces them to follow a very, very straight jacketed path.
So
So
true.
I
Yes.
I wouldn't completely contest the fact that yes, their regimentation is required, a certain amount of discipline and routine is required, a certain amount of rote learning is required, no doubt about it. But somehow create these little bubbles. You see,
Hmm.
we could create these little beautiful bubbles all over the
Hmm.
place where
Hmm.
everybody is giving them a chance.
Hmm.
Now the new, I mean, I don't want to bring that in here, but the NEP, the new education policy says that we want more innovators, we want more people who are skilled, we want children who can think on their feet, right? But
Hmm.
how can and how will they think on their feet? And it goes back like to the world of words, right?
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
it's not like if you have a good vocabulary doesn't mean you're showing off. It's
Hmm.
just that you can say the same thing in so many ways, right? Now, today, when you're interacting with children, 90% of their vocabulary would be like if you ask them a question, how are you feeling? Okay. So I was like, okay, so am I supposed to gauge your okay degree from your tone? Right?
Right.
So
Hmm.
yeah, so then they would say, okay, so what are we supposed to do? Okay,
Hmm.
kind of okay. So I
Hmm.
was like, think of a word, right? So are you calm? Are you composed? Are you ecstatic? Are you,
Hmm.
enthralled? And they were
Hmm.
like, oh my God, there are so many words.
Huh.
To
Yeah.
express the same emotion. So I
Hmm.
think that this is somewhere that we really need to work, and we are
Hmm.
faltering because they have a huge capacity. They have
Hmm.
a absolutely huge capacity, and they are ready to go full hog if you give them that opportunity.
Hmm.
They do.
True. So
That's
true.
been my experience so far. And the last thing on this count that I would say is that we must make life real for them. You know, Now, this in a public forum may sound a little out of place. In the sense, most of my interactions when I'm having with parents, and they have, say, very high expectations of the children, I tell them it's not incorrect. It is not wrong at all. It's
Hmm.
perfectly fine, right? But have you shared all along with them, or are you demanding, right?
Hmm.
So, what we talked in the beginning is that imposition. So, when you have somebody like in KBC, in the last episode that I saw in KBC, one person from Ahmedabad said, if it was up to my dad, he would have written doctor on my birth certificate only.
So true.
You know,
Yeah.
that he was so hung up. So there's no harm in that. But you must share, you must scaffold, you must give them that required support. And if they are not interested in what your dream is, then give them room to grow on their own,
Hmm.
which we don't do.
Yeah.
Which we don't.
Yeah.
And therefore, we need to really think about.
Yeah. So, Suvarchala, I just came up, somewhere the bulb just uh, lit on. And what is one of your most memorable experiences, as a change maker? What is one of the best, most memorable feedback that you've got?
In fact, it's a very interesting thing. So like if you've been with children who came to you, say, in grade 1 and left when they were in grade 12, it's like a lifetime. They come in at 6 years and they're going out at 18,
Hmm.
right? So on and off, I bump into a whole lot of these students of mine, and
Mm-hmm.
I do remember a lot of things because I had a very, very personal relationship with a whole lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes there are some things that kind of get a little clouded.
Hmm.
So just a few days back, one young girl, she's a young lady now, of course,
Hmm.
working and a contemporary. So she called me up and said, "I'd like to meet you because I'm in town." And I was like, "Okay, fine, yes, let's meet up."
Hmm.
So when we met, the first thing she said to me is that, "You know something? You're the only one who always believed in me." And I was, "Hey, come on.
Wow. Hmm.
Stop giving me, stop telling me things just to make me feel good, right?" This was my response to her because we
Hmm.
were meeting after a very long time. And she says, "No, I am truly telling you this. You were the only one at a certain point of time where no one, not even my parents, believed in me, but you did. And later, the same thing helped me when I joined college. Because the ability that you had recognized in me when I was, kind of not even a teenager,
Hmm.
stood me in good stead later on, right? So I mean, there are so many such examples which kind of tell you that, okay, fine, north, south, east, west, I think my compass is kind of
Yeah.
properly aligned, you know because you yourself tend to get sometimes into self doubt that, are you pushing a child too much? Are
Hmm.
you, you know are you being a little too demanding? Those questions come to us also, right?
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
not like it's not like we are from a different planet. We are also
So true.
human. Yes,
Absolutely.
but
Yeah.
because of the fact that we've decided to go in a certain direction and so strongly believe in it, it helps.
Yeah.
And another very small, I mean, most of my experiences revolve around things to do with self-worth and self-esteem.
Hmm.
uh, you know I'm sure if this child is watching it, he's also no longer a child. He's a grown-up man, and so he's dark skinned, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And when he must have been in fifth or sixth grade if I'm not mistaken, but he's an athlete and he's a player.
Hmm.
And he used to get very upset because children would call him Kalia,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Okay, kaisa matlab
Oh
kala hai.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And usually he never got perturbed, but then it took on a higher level of teasing.
Hmm. Hmm.
And one day he was very upset and he came to me and I said that, you know what? I just whispered it to him. I said, "Do you know Krishna? And he was like, yeah, of course, everybody knows Krishna. And I
Mhm.
was like, what do we say to him? Shyam Rang. We say dark skin. And all Mills and Boone novels, when you grow up, I'll show them to you myself. Thought you have been handsome. I don't know why I said that to a sixth grader, but believe me, he walked out of my room about 2 inches taller. You
So
know, he was
nice.
like,
Wow.
oh, I'm going to so a lot of the work that you also are doing resonates with what I'm doing, in the sense that accept yourself as you are, become
Yeah.
aware of what you are,
Hmm.
look at your potential and your capacities rather than your negativities. We all have them, but get real. You see,
Yes.
going back to the point about parents not being real, they
Hmm.
would kind of say, "Hamare zamane mein, you know what we used to do." Kids will say, automatically shut off. They will say, "Aapka zamana khatam.
Hmm.
Let's not even talk about it."
Yeah.
They may not verbalize. They may not verbalize it, but
Hmm.
in their head, that's what they're saying.
Yeah.
So you have lost a potential listener. You know, you need to have them on board. You need to tell them reality. You need to tell them that even I was scared. I was scared when I was studying, or
Yeah.
I even feel like smoking, and they were like,
Yeah.
"What? You're a woman? How can you smoke?" I said, "I'm not smoking." I said, "I felt like smoking."
Right.
Right? So,
Right.
then they know that yes,
Hmm.
they are, as mentors, they are also real. They are not artificial people who are kind of what we started out with, imposing on us.
Right, right. So it's been really nice listening to that little story you shared, Suvarchala. I would like to hear some more of the impact that you've made, because I think being a change maker is all about impact. And even if it's one person you impacted, I think that's yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. I strongly believe in that. Um, in fact, I feel that change should actually be small. Um, how do I say this? What we are often looking at today, uh, even in the world of marketing, even in the world of relationships and all of that, what we are looking at is a quick fix solution to everything,
2 minutes.
and water is going to take, yeah, 2 minutes, right? Water is going to take the time it requires to reach the boiling point, right?
Hmm.
Okay, you can jack it up by a wee bit,
Hmm.
but what happened? You eventually got boiling water only,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
So I feel that walking that path, the process, when we are mentoring, what we must explain to children, and that's exactly what I do, or to teachers, or to anybody. There are three things, according to me, that need to be told to them over a period of time or bang on. One, it is not essential to reach the goal.
Hmm.
Now, this may kind of not sit well with a lot of people,
Hmm.
because they would say that there would be people who would turn around. So I said, where's the problem?
Hmm.
You want to climb Everest. There are a lot of things that you need to do in order to be able to climb Everest, right? So
Hmm.
we don't kind of, so you need to be medically fit, you need to be mentally fit, and all of that. But even if you have managed to get to the base camp, for you, it should be an achievement,
Hmm.
because no process goes without learning something.
So
But
true.
what we do, we miss the magic. We
Hmm.
miss that magic because we are concentrating on the peak. Yes, वो मछली की आंख और अर्जुन जरूरी है,
Hmm.
very necessary,
Hmm.
but not all the time. Not all the time, right? So if he was a good marksman, well, that was one thing that he was good at, right? Yes, we should, emulate that. We should be able to concentrate and things like that. But don't be in a rush. Don't be in a hurry. Take your time, chew, you know, kind of go through that whole process of feeling it, right? What
Hmm.
happens is we are so driven
Hmm.
as adults, as mentors, as teachers, we make it our life. And I'm yet to come across a parent when I
Hmm.
explain this thing to them that they have contested it. They haven't. They
Hmm.
understand it. They say, yes, you are right. We're kind of rushing the kid. And it is so evident in COVID times. You have the hovering parents. क्यों नहीं सुन रहे हो teacher की बात? Why aren't you paying attention for the little ones? The older ones are smarter. They would switch off the camera or they'd switch off, you know. Yeah. So the teacher must also have that ability, that large-heartedness to accommodate even this change. See,
Right.
and if this is happening, you have to come around, take a little detour, think of a mechanism of getting them back on board. So this is one thing. I feel that don't make these artificial and unreal goals for them. Yes, let them decide and then take on that journey, right? So with all the students that I have mentored, and like I said, I think it's kind of inherent or ingrained passion in me to bring out the best in children who I feel can do it. And for me, that is every child, right?
Right.
It's not just one child,
So
it's every
true.
child. So what happens is sometimes, like you said, the little change, we are looking for replication. Many times people ask me, many times, they'll tell me that, so what are the numbers? What are the numbers? And I was like, I don't believe in numbers. I'm probably dysgraphic and I hate labeling, but just to put them off their feet, I tell them that I don't like numbers. Why a change can be that teeny weeny bit? Even if we have changed one soul and taken a commitment from that child that you will pass on this change, darling, whenever you can, it's more than enough. And it happens because I have seen it happen. Again, I have one student who just to, as you said, you should share some experiences. So there's this very talented boy, and he came into our school when he was in grade 1, and today he's at a very senior position. And one thing which I always noticed about him was that he was always there for others, even as a little child. So when they left in class 12, I just, called him up, and that year I wasn't there. And then, so I called him up and I told him, there's one thing that I don't want you to change about yourself. And he said, what is that? Because he was about to join college and go to engineering college. So then I said, sorry, there are 3 things I don't want you to change. And he was like, so what is that? So I said, one is, please do not stop helping others. Be there for them. That's one. 2, he still is an avid reader and a quizzer. I said, even if you're joining engineering, darling, please don't give up these hobbies. Stick to them. And trust me when I say that it will help you. This boy went on to quiz with the best of the best in the country. He went on to, become a co-mentor with me at Katha.
Wow.
Right? And yes. So it's a moment that I can't even describe.
Sure. Yeah.
When you see that whatever you had thought of sprinkling into the environment, like we have in drip irrigation, I equate it to drip irrigation. And one drop at a time kind of changes lives.
Wonderful.
What I found.
Wow. I think what you just said, Suverchala, there's so much that's said about teachers being like gardeners.
Yes, absolutely.
So I think what you just okay. Let's with so much of experience to back up what you're saying. How about if you share a couple of tips for teachers who are doing online classes, because it's very challenging for them right now with talking to screens, looking at faces but not knowing what's going on. So they probably become impatient at some point of time. So how would you help them? Can you say something that yeah.
Absolutely. In fact, that's an interesting point you brought up, because I have been, let's say, mentoring a couple of teachers over here over a period of time. And the change, I will talk about the change first that I have seen from March to October. We are already done with October, right?
Right.
Now, even if we count it from April, when
Mm-hmm.
online classes were kind of becoming formalized,
Mm-hmm.
everybody was on extremely shaky ground, right?
Yes.
Technology wise, adept, whether I'm adept at it. And like you said, will I be talking to a screen and, not having an impact on them and things like that? But there again comes in this interesting part about realization, awareness, and what is it that I want to do about it. Okay. So without saying it in a manner that is, kind of an aspersion on anybody, those teachers who kind of looked at themselves in the mirror and said, I think these are the things I need to change about myself, or these are the things that I need to ask for help. Okay. Or this is the time where I can build a certain rapport
Mm-hmm.
with my students, whatever age they may be. And trust me, the very junior children are really taking a beating in the sense it is not easy for them. It is not easy for the teachers or for the little ones below the age of 6
Mm-hmm.
to be in front of screens, right? And then we were facing this huge paradox in the sense that until now we were telling children to stay off gadgets, right?
Absolutely.
And then
Yeah.
we had,
Yeah.
and then the kids are laughing all the way to town and saying that, oh, now you are
Mm-hmm.
telling me, why don't you sit with my phone? Why don't you sit with the laptop, right? So,
Yes.
what I would advise teachers is that you must constantly innovate, revamp yourself, not vamps, but revamp. Sometimes you may have to become the villain or the vamp, right? But revamp yourself. Keep that option open, right? Do not ever feel, this is what I tell the teachers, that even if you have to take help from a child, you know, sometimes like when I am on, there are so many platforms now, and one day I don't know what I did, and the mic was on, and the child is telling me categorically, ma'am, go to the left side of your screen, click on
Mm-hmm.
this. And I was like, oh my god, how does he know? And then I realized I forgot, I'd forgotten to switch
Absolutely.
off the mic, right?
Huh. Huh.
And I got this remote help from a
Yes.
little boy,
Huh.
9-year-old boy, telling me what to do. So the same thing, Dr. Mathur, what applies in a classroom scenario applies in online. That we have to
Yes.
constantly think of mechanisms whereby we can engage them. Now,
Right.
some teacher may counter the point by saying that how can we engage somebody when we can't even see them,
Right.
right? So that is where I step in and I say you can. And at the end of the talk, if we have a few minutes, I will share what I did, a small exercise with some teachers, and how they were able to realize that when we are in the shoes of the children, what happens.
Why
So
don't you
don't
share
give
it
up.
right now? Just go
Okay,
ahead and share it. Yeah.
yeah, just a minute. Just give me a minute.
Sure. I think a very big part of being a change maker is also being, a good learner, because you also have to keep changing. All of us have switched on to this mode.
Absolutely.
This was quite new to us, and all of us. I mean, I remember there was a session in which I kept talking, and then I got this feedback, "Ma'am, you're not neither visible nor audible," and so we're all working through these things, and I think the change is also challenging for us also in so many ways. Yes,
Absolutely.
please go
Absolutely.
ahead. Please go ahead.
Yeah. So this is just a very small aspect that I'm going to deal with, and I will just tell you.
Mhm.
Yeah. So the thing is now, if you take a look at the image, and I've deliberately taken an image where the child is absolutely excited and full of enthusiasm.
Mhm.
So this is particularly for the junior teachers if we talk about say something like hopscotch,
Mhm.
right? Or anything, even say for boys you could have the basketball where they have to play something in between. Now
Mhm.
this is the bubble that I talked about.
Mhm.
Create opportunities, give them a chance to think out of the box. So
Mhm.
if they're sitting in front of the screen all the time, I can tell them that, okay, darlings, I want you to remain in front of the screen, as in I can see you, be in front of the camera, But how about when I ask you a question, make a square, and if it's a yes, you will jump out.
Hmm.
If it's a no, you will stay in. And then, like rapid fire, you start going faster and faster. So, what have you done? You've just kind of engaged them in a different mechanism, all right? You have
Hmm.
fired their neurons because movement, we know movement is very essential.
Hmm.
Any kind of movement. Maybe we just dance, we play a song. And so, also for the seniors, it's not like only for the juniors. The
Hmm.
seniors can also be given an opportunity.
Hmm.
So,
Hmm.
create those opportunities,
Hmm.
differentiate your methodology from time to time.
Hmm.
Otherwise, monotony creeps in even in a physical classroom and even in the uh,
Virtual.
um, e-classroom. Yes,
Yes.
a virtual classroom. And monitor. Like, see, what happens is we all know that it is essential to keep learning profiles. We should have learning profiles at the tip of our fingers when we are interacting with children, but not for the purpose of labeling them, right? Not
Hmm.
like saying that, oh, Suverchala is lazy and Pragya is active. That's the
Hmm.
end of your learner's profile. No, it is more to feed what you would do next, right? So briefly, I will share the activity that I did with the teachers, where it was almost like that Archimedes bulb, where he kind of streaked across the road saying Eureka, Eureka.
Hmm.
So I'll just share that. So this was one where I just put these very simple questions to them.
Hmm.
What makes you happy?
Hmm.
Name three things you are thankful for today. If you could
Hmm.
visit anywhere in the world, where would you go? Now,
Hmm.
at the same time, take a look at this other one. If you could teleport by blinking your eyes, where would you go?
Hmm.
Now, when you do these simultaneous activities, right, they came up with such beautiful answers, I can't tell you. One of them said, I want to go back to Garhwal, I want to go to my native place, and I'm sitting right here, but I'm already there. I said, now if
Yeah.
you do this 5-minute exercise with children,
Hmm.
what are you doing? You're
Hmm.
stoking their imagination.
Hmm.
You see,
Hmm.
today with audio visual available to us, most of us, when we read about Cinderella, we would think, oh, what did she look like? We avoided seeing the pictures, right? Because we wanted to imagine on our own. Today
Yes.
you have
Hmm.
all kind of Cinderellas, all kind
Hmm.
of sounds.
Hmm.
You are unable to imagine, right? So this was a very small activity that took a little while, and they came
Hmm.
up with very interesting things. Then another activity that we did with them was this one. Okay, like just to make them understand that children also go through the same
Hmm.
situations, right? For instance, again, making them identify happy, calm, disappointed,
Hmm.
anxious, scared, frustrated, angry. Now,
Hmm.
and I said, let's be honest about it, because if you're honest, it will do you good and you'll be able to take better, feedback from your own children. And you will not believe me, Dr. Mathur, that many
Hmm.
of them said, can we also choose more than one, ma'am?
Wow.
Okay, so they said first, they said first we were disappointed with our
Hmm.
class not answering our questions. Then we were frustrated, and then we were angry, right? But
Hmm.
in that moment, they went through this absolute highs and lows.
Hmm.
And I said, now imagine what your kids are going through when you're just shouting absolute instructions to them. Look at the camera, look at me, don't switch off the
I
thing.
know.
So yeah. So, how do you feel? I feel feelings are an extremely integral part of who we are, and we must learn to sieve them. We must learn to put them through a strainer and say that it's not going to be very easy. Yes,
Hmm.
I can get
Hmm.
angry, but
Hmm.
how do I handle it? How do I
How do you deal
cope?
with that? Right.
Yes.
Right.
How do you
Yeah.
deal with that? Very, very
Yes.
essential to explain that to children and others.
Wow.
So,
That's.
and of course, this was in a workshop format.
Huh.
So we gave them enough time to, identify the feelings, become aware. Because
Hmm.
in conclusion to this point, what I would say is that it's very essential to teach children to look themselves clearly in the eye, you know, And then also as mentors, like you said, share an experience. This
Mhm.
used to be my sentence to every child, girl or boy. I
Mhm.
would tell them, come hail or shine, whether you do something good or bad, I'm always there for you.
Mhm.
And there have been cases where, there have been cases which sometimes some of them kind of got a little off track, to the extent that they even experimented with drugs. I never reprimanded them. I said, okay, let's go down to recognizing that why did you opt for this, or why did you choose this path, right? And how about thinking? So because they knew that this person is one person who we can always go back to,
So
right?
important, so
And
important.
yeah, so without being judgmental, it's very easy to be judgmental, you know,
Yeah.
and it's like, but I feel that that is not the right approach, not the right approach at all, because like you
Mhm.
said, children are children. They are going to experiment. They are going to, when they are given different exposure, they are going to feel like taking on certain aspects which they may not or are not supposed to.
Mhm.
But if they have some semblance of rationality in their environment, or there's someone who's ready to accept them with open arms,
Mhm.
and we also have to tell them that the world is not going to be what you want it to be. The only person that you can work on is yourself,
So true.
right? Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So
So tell us your
I think,
mantra, Suvarchala. What is that? The one mantra that's been, driving you all these years and which you've been sharing with all the people you've mentored
uh,
and helped to
yes.
get better.
So yeah, so I have this. Not any great mantra, but I call it the 3P mantra.
Mm-hmm.
3P as in
Mm-hmm.
purpose, passion, right?
Mm-hmm.
So because what happens is very often, if we are not clear about our purpose,
Yeah.
okay, this
Yeah.
again, I do the small experiment like workshop with teachers, children, anybody. So
Mm-hmm.
if I'm clear about my purpose, okay,
Mm-hmm.
no amount of outside intervention is
Mm-hmm.
going to confuse me, shake me, right? Because I know very clearly that right now I'm a horse with blinkers. I want to perform this purpose, right? So if that purpose is clear, now our education also is not catering to that, right? It's not telling you why you should study. I don't want to
Yes.
study. Yeah, there are so many people who don't want to study. So purpose is one, passion is the second, and the third is the most important with someone like me. So I'll put that in the common denominator. The third is perseverance, but also procrastination. Now, procrastination I look at as a positive word. Sometimes putting off something helps you to rediscover your purpose,
Oh, yes.
right? So a very quick example I'll share with you. There's this student of mine who's just written his book called The Green Roses.
Wow.
um, uh, uh, he's just a 13-year-old turned 14, and both of us call each other procrastinators, all right? And so we would laugh that, how can one procrastinator mentor another procrastinator and imagine a book coming out of it. But because he was very clear about his purpose, I was very clear about my purpose. We both were very passionate about it. So the procrastination just became one little interference that would come on and off, and we would laugh about it, we would chill about it, and then we'd say, no, another 3 hours we have to write. Okay. So I feel finding your purpose may sound something very difficult to do, but technically it isn't. And the sooner we are able to find that, it could be a love for writing, it could be playing, it could be music, anything. So I try to keep these 3Ps very clear
Wow.
whenever.
That's brilliant. So let's see, Suvarchala, there may be a very diverse audience for this talk that we are having, this conversation, Ek Samvaad. If there are a few youngsters who are who are hooked on to what you're saying, but they would like to identify their purpose, but they are quite beaten up by the idea that what are you going to become when you grow up?
Yes,
This
yes,
question is,
absolutely.
so how do you differentiate purpose from what you want to become? And also, how would I identify what my purpose is?
Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic question. And yes, like I said, it's not something that happens overnight.
Mm-hmm.
To give you a very simple example, most often I will just give you an example which is not directly related to academics, but maybe to being a good human being. Okay, so often when I was or I am promoting honesty and stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that with children, especially, they were like, ah. Aren't you living in the 6th century or something? I mean, वो युधिष्ठिर वगैरह नहीं चलता है, ma'am.
Huh.
You know, you kind of. I said, look, I'm saying that you have to discover your purpose. So suppose I am uncomfortable by being dishonest, I obviously won't fit it. And again, when I say dishonesty, there are no black and white,
Hmm.
right? So suppose dishonesty is something that makes me uncomfortable.
Hmm.
I would try not to be in fields of that kind. For instance, like being a salesperson, right? It may give me bread, butter, jam, plus some slices of cheese, but
Hmm.
maybe that's something I cannot sell because I'm incapable of, selling something like a fairness cream, which is such rubbish.
True.
I don't believe in the purpose. I don't
Hmm.
believe in that whole thing, right?
Hmm.
So this question that you asked, therefore, it begins with these small things. Now, purpose does not have to be directly correlated to the profession. Must
Hmm.
understand that. Purpose is of life. Purpose is that do I want to be kind enough to help somebody down the street? Purpose is do I feel good when I kind of abuse 20 people around me? Right? So purpose is something which is like an umbrella. It's I envision it as an umbrella. The angle at which you keep it will help you define the path you want to follow in that moment. So very often you will see around you, you will have people who've become engineers, who've become doctors, who have even become IAS officers. They are there because of someone else's purpose.
Hmm.
And therefore, they are not doing justice to their jobs. Must understand that. बन गए, पढ़ाई कर ली, उधर पहुंच गए, पर अभी तक एहसास नहीं हुआ कि हम यहाँ आए क्यों थे.
Right.
Why did
Right.
I do this whole thing, right?
Huh.
So now
Huh.
this again is a very controversial, I would say, and a very sometimes a paradox kind of a situation. But like I said, create opportunities, help children to think about it. 90% of the children will choose either engineering or it's still happening. Even with the opening up of avenues, it is still happening, right?
I think for a lot of people, it may be one of the first times they ever ask someone talking about what is your purpose rather than what is your ambition. So, is there a difference between the two? And
Um, See, to some extent, there can be overlaps. To some extent, there can be overlaps. But how I perceive purpose and how I put it across to children or to young adults and teachers, I keep repeating that because
yes,
people often think, कि सिर्फ बच्चों के लिए नहीं है, it is also for us,
yes,
right?
yes.
Or because we all have our little moments of feeling low, of feeling, I have been getting a lot of this during COVID. Many people have been telling us that, the world has almost come to an end and things like that. So I said, rediscover your purpose.
Hmm.
You've been given a chance.
Hmm.
This little virus has thrown you off balance, but has
Hmm.
also given you a chance to rediscover and
Hmm.
kind of pan out and think about something, right? So with children, what one can do is give them opportunities to what we call critical thinking.
Hmm.
What we do is everything is half baked.
Hmm.
We don't, like I said, we don't even give them a chance to breathe, right? If you tell them that, okay, fine, you want to be an engineer, darling, fair enough. Could you do a little bit of research for me? I'm not so good at it, sweetheart. And tell me what are the fields. You put the ball in the child's court.
Hmm.
4 or 5 days, the child will work on that and come back and, or may not work on that and say that, look, this is what you get. I'll get a job at Google, I'll get a job here. Okay, fine. Now, can we go a little deeper into it? While you are going to imagine yourself being in this top notch job, what else do you want to do with your life?
Hmm.
And then the child will slowly come forward and say, actually, I love photography.
Hmm.
Uh,
Hmm.
I love this, I love that. We have so many movies that have been made on that. Okay, fine. No need to romanticize it for them. Tell them, find a place for yourself where you could perhaps do all, but just saying it or dreaming about it is not going to happen. Start now. If you're so keen on photography, how about clicking a few beautiful pictures, putting them out there, get
Hmm.
the feedback,
Hmm.
and prepare for your competitive exams, right? You say this to them, and I am telling you, it opens up this beautiful world for them because they feel we are not being cloistered. You know, 90% of the youth today are missing out on youth. They're missing
Absolutely.
out on they're missing out on
Absolutely.
childhood.
That's why I thought it would be so amazing to have someone like you with so much of experience, an educator and a journalist and a poet and everyone talk about looking at the world through the eyes of a child. We don't even
That's
allow
it.
them to share what they're seeing. So actually going there and having that kind of empathy and identifying with the children is something so amazing, Suvarchala. It's
And very necessary. Very
yeah,
necessary.
yeah. So you've been mentoring children, and I think some of them have actually authored their own books. Would you
Yes,
like to share how the process happens, and when they finally have the book and that sense of pride?
certainly, certainly. So, in 2017, was the first child, one of my students who came out with a small novella, a small book. And he again happened to be a 13-year-old. When he came to me, uh, we did not have this as an agenda. That's why I said sometimes agendas can be debilitating. They can,
Mm-hmm.
kind of kill your freedom and your creativity. So we were kind of going through the process of, him writing. And then I discovered his potential. And I kind of goaded him a little more. I said, you can do much better than this, much better than this. And he started actually doing justice to that. And eventually, the book was out, right? So we decided, and it is called Destiny's Child, Take It or Leave It,
Mm-hmm.
entirely his story. But here I would like to share something with parents and teachers and students is
Yes.
that this boy has such a strong conviction, okay, which is admirable. And I have learned so much from him. So when I would be editing the book, I would, at every page, I would tell him that, sweetheart, it's your book. So you feel free to ask me questions and say that why have you edited this line? And that's exactly what we used to do.
Mm-hmm.
And we would sit for hours on end
Mm-hmm.
discussing it, and he would
Mm-hmm.
question me, why do you think this word should be here? Don't you think I've written it correctly? you
Mm-hmm.
know so the dialogue, eventually I may change the word, may not change the word, but this onus and this responsibility, the sense of belonging that the book is mine, made him work harder and harder and harder. And the interesting thing is that once the book got published, it was picked up by a school in Texas, if I'm not mistaken, somewhere there in the US, by a school to be a supplementary reader for their children.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was amazing. Then another interesting thing was with a child, not child exactly, but a young lady.
Mm-hmm.
She's about 34, 33.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, hers is not a published work as yet. We are working on it. I Too Can Fly. She is uh, a patient of cerebral palsy,
Mm-hmm.
and she can barely speak. And
Mm-hmm.
of course, you know what happens in policy. She's like, muscular dystrophy and all of that, but a beautiful human being. And again, it was like a give and take. Learned a lot from her. And a couple of books are in the pipeline, but the last one that has just been published in August is Green Roses by Siddharth
Wow.
Prabhu. Again,
Mm-hmm.
eighth grader, now in ninth. Now in
Wow. I
ninth.
think
And that's a complete book, almost 300 pages.
Amazing, amazing. I think I see something very, very important and critical reflected in the entire conversation that we just had, Suvarchala, which is we need to respect children as people.
Absolutely.
And a lot of the time, I think in our scenario, especially in schools, we don't even give them credit for having an opinion of their own, you know. We're always
Exactly.
talking down to them most of the time, unfortunately. And so by the time they actually grow up and become young, either they are rebels, if they were sure enough of what they wanted, they'd become rebels or something, or the innovation that we are looking for has already been thrown out of the window.
Exactly. So, one last thing I would like to share with you, if possible.
Sure, please.
Just a minute. I'm so sorry. Just a minute.
No problem.
So, did this? Yeah. Can you see the screen?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So, like you asked me that how could teachers or even parents kind of bring in that zing factor or bring about being a change maker. Sometimes we are underestimating ourselves. Okay. So what I usually tell the teachers is that you are the king or the queen, and the children in your classroom are your kingdom, right? So if you look at it that, oh, you are the
Wow.
magician, and,
Yeah.
and so if you look at it in that manner, but sometimes they come back and say, oh my god, our kingdom is very chaotic, right? So
Then become a magician.
yeah, yeah, or become the Pied Piper, right? You have to engage. So
Yes.
this is
Yes.
another mantra which works with wonderful invitation.
Hmm.
When you put it across to them in that manner, even if it is a group of teachers and you tell them, wouldn't it be wonderful if you thought about chairing the next meeting? And they're
Hmm.
going to be stumped. They're going to think, you out of your mind. How on earth can I chair the next meeting? Right? But what are you doing? You're creating a new reality for them. You're creating a stakeholder. You're
Hmm.
creating somebody who believes in
Hmm.
you
Hmm.
because you're giving them this option. So,
Yes.
constantly engaging with dialogue of innovative critical thinking practices also leads to a whole lot of innovation. You know what we are talking about, and
Hmm.
not giving up on our tiny, tiny, tiny dreams.
Hmm.
You see,
Hmm.
some of those dreams can be very tiny, and uh, this should not be misunderstood. I am repeating that it is perfectly fine to have very clear cut goals, very necessary. But the dreams will fuel your goals. Don't give up on your dreams. Nowadays,
Yeah.
the new mantra is be goal oriented, be goal oriented. By the time you're 45, you've run the race, you've become a marathoner, but you've not noticed the cool breeze, you've not noticed the trees, you've not noticed the birds chirping, right? So
Yes.
roads could so wouldn't it be wonderful if you just threw this to even grade 11 and said, wouldn't it be wonderful if roads could renew their surfaces like skin?
Hmm.
I mean, you will have them like little caterpillars thinking about this concept that, what if they are self renewing roads? How much money would probably go into it, but what a magical thing we would get, just
Yes.
like a skin. Yeah. So perpetually asking what if questions, engaging them in dialogue, and not just talking to them, like you said, or talking down to them, but talking with them, being with them, respecting
Yes.
them as human beings and their
Yeah.
entity. Very, very,
Yeah.
very essential.
And may I add one more thing, Suvarchala? I think feedback.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Feedback,
So,
feedback, immediate feedback is very essential. So
yes.
also the feedback of completing that circuit, you know,
Hmm.
the loop. we don't complete the loop.
Yes.
Like last example I will give you, and then you can get me off the show.
No, we're not waiting for
No,
that to
it's
happen.
like,
Please carry on. Please
no,
carry
like,
on. This.
as a student, I mean, when I was a kid, I would always get this, line in my notebook in Bangalore, uh, can do better, right? Can do better. And according to me, that was the best.
Yeah.
So then my mom being a diligent mom and all of that would help me to shape it and things like that. But as I grew older, that's where I started questioning that as teachers, we just tell them that you can do better. Nobody tells them how. How can I do better? Right? I know the what, I know
Hmm.
the when, I know the who, but I don't know the how. Okay.
Hmm.
So how and purpose when they come together, right? So we will have people around us, just kind of doing things for the heck of doing it.
Yes.
So what purpose is it serving? You know, even on a very philosophical level, this is another example which was in our life, so I can say, I mean, I've experienced it. Like on our birthdays, I don't think I had cut a cake ever while growing up. Not because we are anti-cake people. No.
Nowadays, yes.
Uh, Not that. It's just that because we felt, or in our environment, our father had put in this, the beauty of celebrating a birthday by making it happen for somebody else, right? But now what has happened, even that has become a moment to be put on Facebook. You go to an orphanage, for God's sake, it's not a museum. For God's sake, if you're doing something whereby you want to celebrate your birthday with them, are you even imagining what they are going through with 20 people coming and, celebrating their birthdays in orphanages,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
So the purpose, it has to be very clear. You have to take a child on board and say, darling, we are not going to have cake cutting. We are not going to have a party. How about going to this so and so place and cleaning up the garbage? The kid would want to kick you. The kid would want to hit you,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
But if you've had a dialogue over a period of time that we will do cake cutting someday, but how about contributing a little bit? You know, you have to show them that this is also possible. This is also possible. Now what is happening? Cake cutting, smearing on each other's faces, something which I detest. Why? What is the purpose? A
Hmm.
country like ours, people don't have food to eat.
Sure. Yeah.
That what you have smeared on someone's face could make one pastry for
Hmm.
one child.
Hmm.
Do we
Hmm.
think like that? No, we don't.
Oh, I
We
think
don't.
I would like to endorse what you just said, Suvarchala, and to any kids that are listening, when you want to do that, just keep that one cake aside, the one you wanted to smear, okay, and think that you smeared it on someone's
Right.
face, but just save it and give it to someone. I mean, that's really one of those simple things that probably we can convince the kids, to change maybe.
And no, they completely understand. You see, they completely understand.
Hmm.
Like I said, why with the food item? Use paint, use color, use anything. Let that food go to somebody else. It's simple. But nobody has told them, no. So it's like joining the bandwagon.
Yeah.
So therefore purpose. Therefore purpose. And
Yeah.
somebody would say that you stand out like a sore thumb, but like Steve Jobs said, you got to be crazy to bring about a change.
Wow. And I think, making a difference even to one life, and every drop counts. That's what Aruni Mankuran also stands for, that each one of us can be a change maker in our own ways. Thank you so much, Suarchila, for your time. And
Thank you
I
so
think
much.
it was absolutely delightful talking to you. I hope that we can come back in the future at
Absolutely.
some point of time on some other topic which probably focuses on teachers and parents, I guess. That's one of the things that I'm sort of deriving from this conversation, that you have so much to say to them, and I hope that we can do that again sometime soon. Thank you so much for being here, Suvarchila. It was a
Thank
pleasure
you.
talking to you, and
Same here.
Arun
Thank you
Mankuran
so
is
much.
very thankful to Suvarchala for helping us to look at the world through the eyes of a child. And I'm sure there are so many people who will be influenced by the thoughts you just shared. So thanks a lot.